This is SoulCharge, the podcast for women leaders to take the highest level of ownership of their power to create results now. I'm your host, Stacy B. Let's dive in. On this episode of SoulCharge, we are bridging the mystical and practical and diving into intuition. On this episode, it's my goal to have you think about intuition differently. It's my goal to bring a level of awareness of how you can move through your leadership, your business, and the world, leaning more into your intuition and harnessing it as the true superpower that it is. So I actually want to start this episode today with a really fun story to demonstrate what I'm wanting to communicate to you on this episode. And so it's a personal story and it's a recent one. And it starts with just last week. I was working away and at my home location in Eagle, Idaho. And I received a text message from a dear friend of mine that was traveling back home. They live in Sedona, Arizona. And they were traveling back from Vancouver. And they said, I know you're in Idaho somewhere. Would you like to get coffee? We're passing through. And I said, come stay with us. Of course. Be great to see you. So they ended up coming and staying with us. And while they were staying with my family and I, they told me about an event that they had to get back home for. And it was on Saturday. They were preparing for it. It was a small, intimate group. And as they were talking about this workshop, my entire body felt ignited, felt intrigued. It felt interested. And on some level, I knew that I needed to be at this workshop. And so I asked more questions. And once I had my arms around what it was, told my husband the following day, I feel like I need to be at that workshop. And it was Thursday. And so I ended up jumping on a flight Friday, attending the workshop. And what I learned and the insights that I gained from that experience were absolutely critical for the next chapter and what I'm stepping into with SoulCharge, what we've launched in the recent weeks, and who I need to become, and frankly, who I already am, and how to harness that in a completely different way. And if I wouldn't have listened to the nudge, I wouldn't have gone to Sedona. I wouldn't have had that experience. And I want to share that with you because life is full of nudges and life is full of moments where our interest gets piqued. We get excited about something. And a lot of times it can be followed by the reasons why not. And the first piece of intuition that I want to invite you to lean into is intuition is absolutely the full body yes. It is, instead of thinking about the reasons why not, it's thinking about what you desire and what you're after as the only possible outcome, and following those nudges and listening to where you notice you get excited or ignited and following that versus thinking it's just a fleeting moment or thinking that it doesn't mean anything. Your greatest expansion, your greatest growth, your greatest success is on the other side of you deciding to harness your intuition. And when I say harness your intuition, what I mean by that is trusting it. When I say trust your intuition, what I mean by that is know thyself and listen to thyself. Put more stock in you than in what others ask of you. Put more stock in who you be versus what the world demands of you. And if you start to do that, you are going to see what you're pursuing happen a lot quicker, with a lot more ease and a lot more enjoyment. And so there is this world of support when we lean into our intuition that is truly something that feels beyond this world, right? It's the spiritual realm that is here to support us. And what I am really excited to communicate to you and help you embody more of is, how do we bring spirituality into business? And really, what I mean by that is, how do we bring all of you into business? Because the truth of the matter is that you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And the minute that we can own that, the minute we step into more joy, more ease, and it really turns into the next level treasure hunt. Like, that is what life is supposed to be, is this treasure hunt of unfolding opportunity and of you being all of you, you trusting your intuition, and you seeing that the more you do that, the more life can support you. You see, what happens for most of us is that we don't listen to our intuition. We're letting the mind run the show. And what that's doing is it's leaving our body out of the equation, and it's leaving our spirit out of the equation. And so imagine for a moment that if you leave those two out, you're really a fragmented individual. In other words, you're not being all of you. And so, of course, life is going to greet you with chaos, stress. There's going to be more of a struggle to have great relationship or succeed in business or do what it is that you want. And that's why. And so it is your superpower and your birthright, and absolutely what's going to take your life and business to the next level if you start paying attention to how you feel, your body, and listening to the nudges of life. Because the fact of the matter is going back to that example of being fragmented, if you're fragmented, of course, you are not paying attention to the treasure hunt life is presenting to you, because you're managing symptoms of stress and you're managing the symptoms of the repercussions of you being disconnected from your intuition. And so, of course, you're going to be stressed. Of course, things are going to be more difficult. Of course, it's because you are not connected. And the minute that you start listening to that, the minute that you lean in, the minute things come together. And so the piece with intuition that is, so important is really recognizing what that is. And I think for a lot of us as leaders, things are so noisy, things are so busy. We don't necessarily recognize ourselves or what that is. But the first tip I want to give you in this recognition of self and your intuition and how to really harness this is, where do you feel the most energized? As it relates to the business, if you think about where you feel the most energized, that is your intuition speaking to you. And so that can be a really great way of recognizing your intuition. Because the thing is I want you to listen to this episode and become more familiar with yourself. Because if you could listen to this and become more familiar with yourself, what's going to happen is you're going to create a relationship. You're going to have more recognition and awareness and connection where you can lean into your intuition more and frankly recognize it. Because a lot of times you don't even know what that feels like because you're running so fast. You're doing it all. You are going a million miles an hour. You're building this greatness, this empire. And the fact of the matter is along the way, there is an incredible guidance system, which is you to tap into. I almost want you to think of your intuition as the leader of your advisory board. Take that in for a minute. What if instead of you thinking of intuition as this far out thing, you start to practically see it as a member of your advisory board? And that member has feedback going on all of the time that you need to start listening to. I know when I first started this journey, and for many of my clients too, when I put these concepts into practical roles or applications, it's easier to comprehend and actually apply using your intuition in business. If you start to think of, okay, I'm going to use my intuition because it's a leader on my advisory board, you're going to pay attention, right? Because the leader on your advisory board has a say. And there is instruction and collaboration and, this partnership, so to speak, when you are working with someone in that capacity. And so if you could start to perceive your intuition in that way, what that does is it allows you to check in with yourself differently. Give yourself that level of respect and reverence that you would for a member of your advisory board of your multi-million-dollar company, your incredible life, and really check in and have regard for what that guidance says. Because that is guiding you 24/7. It's available for you to tap into when things are not clear, when you need guidance, when you need a little more clarity on the next step, or if you're thinking of something in a certain way and you need a fresh perspective. Your intuition is this well of opportunity and knowledge and guidance, and it is time that we start relating to it in a reverent way, in a way in which we give that regard. And when we start to develop that, it turns into a muscle like any other muscle that we start to develop. And what that does is allows us to start building trust. We start to recognize what that feeling is when something isn't right. We start to recognize when we need to make that bold move or that big decision because the intuition feels just like this. And then we start to realize when we meet that person and it feels off, oh, that's my intuition guiding me like this. Oh, when things are going really well, I need to take a step back or I need to rest for me to take that next, expansive move. My intuition does XYZ. So what you do is you start to build this reservoir or, this sort of palette of how your intuition speaks to you and how that feels and how that resonates. And what you can then do is lean on that and leverage that as truly one of the most incredible tools that you have in growing your business, in living your life at the highest level. I am excited to announce that SoulCharge now offers in-person classes at our Boise, Idaho headquarters. If you are a leader that is looking to claim your next level, you are looking to activate that level of conviction you know is within you, but you feel stuck or uncertain of what's next. Maybe you feel misaligned with what you're currently doing and knowing that there is a next level for you to unlock, SoulCharge classes are for you. In my own journey, I saw a lot of resources out there that were specific in energy work or spiritual work or siloed into business performance coaching or business performance. And I wanted a merge of all the worlds. I wanted a merge of the practical meeting the mystical. And how can we harness our internal state and the energy that is truly us and have that result in more aligned and purposeful business outcomes. And so I created SoulCharge. SoulCharge is the first and only leadership operating system for the leaders that want to harness the mystical and the practical and create a life that they love and incredible results in the process. If this interests you, join us. The first experience at SoulCharge is complimentary. Click on the link below to learn more, and we look forward to seeing you at a SoulCharge location near you. There are aspects of intuition that I want to bring your attention to. Sometimes as we build a muscle, it is helpful to have some sort of a framework or approach to start to build our familiarity with what it is we're trying to grow. And so a lot of times when we're trying to grow intuition or trying to build our relationship with intuition, it's helpful to have some context of what we should be looking for. And so here are a couple of tips to focus on as you increase your attention on intuition and build the relationship with your intuition. So the first thing is awareness. As always, in India, they used to tell us awareness is the first and the last step. And I think that's true in so many cases. And it's very true as it relates to intuition, because the awareness of the intuition and the interest and the openness to connect to it is three-quarters of the process. It's your awareness that it's there. It's your awareness that it's guiding you. It's your awareness that it is supporting you and here for you and a part of your tool belt, not just in the moments when you can carve out 10 or 30 minutes to meditate or have space, but the awareness that this is a team member for your business. It is your IA, right? Your intuitive assistant. It's thinking of it in that way. And the way to do that is awareness. And so that's the first piece is, can you be more aware today about when you noticed your intuition? That's a very simple and practical step. Can you reflect on the day and say, gosh, I really noticed that I had an inkling to do X, Y, or Z, and I decided to not do that, and I felt a little miffed. That was your intuition speaking to you. Another example is, can you see that your intuition said, that doesn't feel right? And you listened, and although at first it looked like a missed opportunity, it ended up working out more beautifully than you could have imagined. That's your intuition. And so being aware of the intuition is a key piece. Now, many of you are waiting for that sign. You're waiting to take that step. You're waiting for that guidance to be loud enough and obvious enough. And what I am here to tell you, in your waiting for the shout, you're missing the whispers. It is the compounding effect of the whispers that turns into a shout, turns into the absolute blatant, obvious, intuitive hit you cannot override, you cannot miss. And so stop waiting for the shout and the sign, because it's here already. Many of you may be navigating a change. Many of you may be navigating a next step. You know what that is. You know what you want. So stop saying you don't know. You know, you're just not willing to expose yourself to the uncertainty. You're not willing to listen to the whisper that it's going to be okay. And so bring your awareness to the whispers, and ultimately it becomes a shout. It becomes a relationship that you can't help but go to in times of need and go to in times of celebration, because it is your guidance system. It is your operating system. As leaders, it is our keen ability to tap into our intuition and combine that with practical strategies that we can make quantum leaps in our lives and business. And that is what this conversation is all about, is how can we familiarize ourselves and bring our awareness to this magic, this truth, this guidance that is always at our disposal if we're willing to hear it, if we're willing to listen, if we're willing to stop letting the external noise drive and start tuning in inside. So awareness is key. The other piece of intuition is, of course, our emotions. It's so easy to let emotions ride, right? You get triggered, they get the best of you. And there is a world, if you start to pay attention, again, in the first step here that I talked about of awareness, is in those moments when your intuition is speaking to you, many of us connect to that by way of the feeling. And so if you're a thinker out there, and I'm referring more, if you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality test that separates people into thinkers and feelers, it can be very easy as a thinker, as a processor, maybe that's how you refer to yourself, as a processor, that you are processing, and so you don't connect to the feelings. But the truth is in my experience, the processors are oftentimes the most spiritual, the most connected, but they're too busy hyper-analyzing every detail that they're missing the whisper as well. And so start to pay attention to those moments. And a great tool to pay attention to the moments where your emotions arise is to ask yourself, What am I feeling right now? Not try to explain it or justify it or whatever, but just tune into how you feel. So, like in this moment, as you're listening to this episode, how do you feel? Can you articulate what that emotion is? Because as you allow yourself to identify how you feel, that cultivates the awareness that we just talked about to dive deeper and connect more deeply to your intuition. The thing about intuition is that I see in the leaders that I work with, it's overridden the most by caring what other people think. Whether it's we know we need to structure our calendars a certain way to support the new initiatives that we're undertaking, whether it is, you know, not scheduling things on certain days or after a certain time, we know these things that we need to do. We know as leaders the things in which we need to do, but the thing is we don't take action on it. Especially if it's just involving ourselves, it's so much easier when it's involving the team, when it's involving the group at large, we can make those decisions all day. But the interesting thing is the decision fatigue most often happens when you are not making the decision you know you need to make. And you're saying you don't know, you're saying you don't have clarity. And really, what's going on is you're ignoring what you know you need to do, which is kiboshing and diminishing your intuition. Because you see, you have to look at intuition, right, as it's you. So every time you are not listening to that and you are allowing it to be overridden because of the mind and or what other people think, what happens is there's a part of your spirit that gets let down. And over time, that is the biggest contributor to burnout. It's not the overworking, it's letting ourselves down time and time and time again when we know what we need to do, but we abdicate our power or we let ourselves down and we don't take action on it. So while intuition seems like this theoretical idea, this idea that's out there, it is the most important thing that you harness. It is the most important thing that you bring your awareness to your intuition and those gut feelings. Because as we move forward as leaders, as we move forward in leading our teams and our companies and our families and our movements, it is absolutely required that we are conscious in our leadership, that we come from intentionality instead of reaction, that we intentionally design how things are going to go, and that we model going for the vision with such trust and conviction, not knowing the how, not knowing how it's all going to turn out, but knowing that the connection with our intuition is so real and so deep. And it's something that we listen to on the daily, that is how we know it's going to go well, that it's going to be okay. But it starts with us. It starts with our awareness and intentionality to not lead from reaction and our triggers and the old and our conditioning and the programs, but that we start to truly lead. It is time, and you listening to this episode, it is time that you step into leadership, to stop being a victim of external validation or what they think or how it's going to be perceived, or being in indecision because it's safer to do that than it is to be exposed to uncertainty. Leadership means leading the ship, leading your life. And we have this opportunity to do it consciously and to be brave and go forth and go first. And if you are willing to do that consciously with the incredible asset that you have, like your intuition is truly this untapped powerhouse of information, of guidance, of assurance, of affirmation, of attunement, that if you bring awareness to it and you start to lean into it, it begins to become a beautiful relationship. And that's, as we wrap up this episode, how I want you to start thinking about your intuition is that you are building a relationship with your inner guidance system. And what that means is, just like any other relationship, you're going to mess up. You're not going to listen. You're going to make mistakes. But if you commit to tuning in, and for you, tuning in may not land. It may not resonate. You're like, tuning in, what is it that you mean? Tuning in is show interest. When you start your day, set the intention of intuition. Give me the opportunity today to connect with you. Give me the guidance today. Show me today a moment where I can hear you. That is expressing and showing interest in this relationship as you cultivate it and build it with your intuition. And so that is what this is about, is developing your connection with you. It's about seeing where you're disconnected so that you can connect and be so connected with yourself that you can be so connected with source. That's what we're so passionate about here at SoulCharge, right? Is setting right the internal state and harnessing the internal state so that you can go out and infuse energy and infuse intentionality and infuse purpose and passion and fire into your relationships on purpose, your business dialed in and booming. It's all about charging your soul so that you can go and change your life. And so lean into this conversation around intuition, bring your awareness to it. And I promise you, the whispers are going to start turning up the volume and then become shouts where they're so loud that when you follow those pieces of guidance, life becomes a true treasure hunt. It becomes so fun and so ignited, and you become so supported because you are in alignment in following that guidance. Are you loving SoulCharge? If so, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share an episode. We want to bring powerful content to women leaders each week so that women can be unleashed to create the results that they want now. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.